Knowing Don Bosco's history, pedagogy and spirituality is the path which the Rector Major Father Pascual Chavez has pointed out to all the Salesian family in order to prepare for the celebration of the bicentenary of his birth. The 30th in the series of Spirituality Days of the Salesian family, taking up the theme of the Strena for 2012, has examined the first step, knowing Don Bosco's history. Once again, the Salesianum welcomed representatives of the various groups of the Salesian family who had come to Rome to meet together, study together, and share their spirituality.
But
our practice these last 2 years has ensured a more balanced and proportionate representation of the various groups. We have also attempted to encourage members in the Salesian family more directly, tied to leadership and involvement in the mission. The Salesian family is a large movement for the salvation of youth. That was the idea of Don Bosco, who already in 1859 was talking about a broad, extensive activity involving religious and other groups for the good of all the young people of the world. This year, our task is to deepen our knowledge of the history of Don Bosco, trying to understand better his spirit, his thinking, everything that made of his life a great mission for poor and abandoned youth. About 380 participants, including religious, consecrated persons and lay people. 23 groups of the Salesian family present. 31 countries represented. These are some figures regarding the 30th in the series of Spirituality Days dedicated to the theme of the Strena for 2012. Making the young our life's mission by coming to know and imitate Don Bosco. A series of speakers presented the way ahead by considering various aspects, the biblical, the historical, and that of the world today from the points of view of experience and of the charism. The biblical scholar, Father Juan José Bartolomé, invited his audience to reflect on the different variations of Don Bosco's great dream, to which the Salesian family is the heir. The salvation of youth. A dream which continues to make the project of the Good Shepherd relevant.
To
continue to work for the salvation of youth, today we need saints who dream, dreamers who become saints, like Don Bosco, to make his dreams come true. God's divine project. The hard cultural times we are going through, the foreseeable, or maybe not, difficulties of the near future, the disenchantment that has accumulated after a more glorious past, do not free us from the dream we inherited from Don Bosco on the very day that God called us to become Salesians. We were not born within the Church as a merely human venture, but by the initiative of God. In his life, obviously, what I would call the foundational moment of that mission to youth was the dream at 9 years of age. It gave him a constant, far-sighted view and the energy to give himself to the young.
Lungimiranza e anche energia per darsi ai giovani.
The talks on the second day, Friday the 20th of January, were devoted to the memoirs of the oratory of St. Francis of Sales, which Don Bosco wrote at the wishes of Pius IX. Father Aldo Girardo, lecturer in spiritual theology and the history of the Salesian congregation, presented the text, pointing out its historical structure and the pedagogical elements contained in it. They are not just a collection of historical memories and details. Don Bosco, by telling the story of the beginning and development of his oratory vocation, has in mind presenting the meaning of a comprehensive experience, formulating an action plan, and highlighting God's purposes. He provides a reading of the past from a religious and pedagogical perspective. The memoirs thus end by being his richest book in terms of content and preventive guidance, a narrative handbook of pedagogy and spirituality, as Father Pietro Braido has wisely said.
Raccontata come disse a suo tempo con molto acume Don Pietro Braido.
Father Bruno Ferrero, editor of the Italian Salesian Bulletin, spoke about the current relevance and the depth in experience and thought of Don Bosco.
Un prete che non aveva niente.
A priest who owned nothing, not even a decent cassock, but he had the most valuable capital any person could have. He had a dream. Come along with me now as we take a short trip to get to know this man better. All those who knew him felt they had to talk about him. Salesian spirituality means seeing life as he did, thinking like him. We can never joke about life. It is all we have.
Sulla vita non possiamo scherzare mai, perché la vita è tutto quello che abbiamo.
On Saturday the 21st of January, accounts of some personal experiences and some videos illustrated the situation of young people and the work being done with them in various parts of the Salesian world today. Father Hubert Gelin, Vice Parish Priest at Castelnuovo Don Bosco, reflecting on his own experience as a Salesian educator, spoke about the various kinds of poverty from which nowadays young people are suffering in an excess of cultures.
Ci sono troppe cose che sono scaricate su di loro per...
There are too many things being dumped on them to occupy their minds and feed their needs and desires. The young are torn between the culture handed on to them by their family, by the culture of school, which is not always compatible with that of their family, and the culture of the third place, the street. It is always like that. When you look at it, you don't always see the spiritual poverty. Only when you spend a little time with them, when you look into their hearts, and when you build up a little trust with them, you can begin to make progress.
Si può cominciare a andare avanti.
A video gave some idea of the Val d'Occo Salesian Center at Argenteuil, 11 kilometers northwest of Paris. Since 1995, Salesians, educators, leaders and volunteers have been welcoming youngsters. Muslims, for the most part from Maghreb, Asians and Eastern Europeans. It is an effort at providing education in the Parisian banlieue, which in common perception has become synonymous with social insecurity and uncertainty. Sister Mary Ann Fernando spoke about a project that the government wanted developed with the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians are undertaking in Sri Lanka on behalf of girl orphans and former girl soldiers.
Psychological guidance. Emotional hurt is the common factor for all of them. Though to varying degrees, it calls for suitable atmosphere and educative interventions, and we do all we can to provide each child the love, care, attention, and psychological help that they need. Counseling and guidance plays an important role.
These experiences helped people appreciate how many needs the children and young people of today have. The talk by the Rector Major indicated the Salesian response, knowing Don Bosco really well so as to imitate what he did in total dedication to the young. Don Bosco is offered to us as a model of love, with all the loving kindness of the preventive system and all the proactive style of the Dami Animas, knowing that in the first place, young people need love, and that this can be translated into education, so that they can come to maturity and successfully cope with life ever more competitive. In fact, having Don Bosco as our father and teacher means preserving God's gift, allowing Don Bosco to guide us in life, striving to let his spiritual experience guide our own experience, will allow us to live under the guidance of divine grace, experiencing God's action in us. Whoever lives in Don Bosco's home, whoever learns at his school, experiences God's gift and knows how to be thankful for it.
Vive il dono di Dio e saprà come ringraziare.
In addition to the talks, there would be other occasions for formation, such as the homilies at the daily Mass, and following the Salesian tradition, the good nights given by the Rector Major, and also on the occasion of the centenary of the death of their founder, Blessed Father Branislaw Markiewicz, by Father Piotr Marcin, a Michaelite.
Don Bosco scoprì il problema della gioventù.
Don Bosco was aware of the problem of abandoned youth, and this is something in which we can imitate him. The second thing was that he realized that the problem was one of culture, and that the most precious gift he could give to the young was education. Education has great power. And we today have the task not only of opting for the young, but of opting for education. It is the only way to change today's culture.
È l'unica forma di trasformare questa cultura d'oggi.
The working groups held on Saturday afternoon offered a good opportunity to exchange ideas and experiences in looking deeper into some of the points raised and in making suggestions regarding possible guidelines offered at the end of the days of spirituality, for each one to take away and to put into practice in the groups they belong to.
Voglio fare dai giovani la mia missione.
Queremos conocer a Don Bosco.
Voglio imitare Don Bosco.
We want to know Don Bosco.
Voglio fare dei giovani la mia missione.
The spirituality days of the Salesian family are a rich and very varied experience. In addition to the topics studied together, there are others reflecting the values of the Salesian charism, helping to build up that family spirit so dear to Don Bosco. The various groups can get together and come to know each other in a cordial and fraternal atmosphere. A social evening recreated the cheerful and lively atmosphere of Valdocco. The presence of the school band from SDB-CIN was a reminder of the band concerts at the Valdocco Oratory. The sketches by Father Daniel Federpiel, alias Papi, entertained everyone, and the songs of the CGS Live from Biancavilla had those present dancing in group.
restate su questo canale, grazie.
Naturally, there was Mass at the end of each day and prayer moment in which the simple active participation focused on listening to the Word of God and reflection. There were two special events during the 30th in the series of the Spirituality Days of the Salesian family. The first took place on Friday afternoon, the 20th of January. The Salesian family went into the Basilica of the Sacred Heart in the centre of Rome. Pope Leo XIII entrusted to Don Bosco the completion of the building of a church in the Castro Pretorio district, a task he took up with a great sense of obedience to the Pope and love for the growing congregation. It was a pilgrimage which provided the opportunity to visit the room where Don Bosco stayed during his last journeys to Rome, recently restored and with the museum next door inaugurated by the Rector Major. It was a pilgrimage which celebrated in the Mass the thanks of the Salesian family for the gift of Don Bosco and his charism. It was a pilgrimage which that evening paid homage to Don Bosco. There was a program of readings and hymns, beginning with the dream at 9 years of age, tracing the path followed by Don Bosco up to the emotional episode of his weeping while celebrating Mass at the altar of Mary Help of Christians on the 16th of May 1887. The second event was the presentation and the distribution of the Charter of Identity of the Salesian family, which takes up, unifies and completes the two previous documents, Common Identity Card and Common Mission Statement. This year, at the conclusion of the Spirituality Days of the Salesian family, and at the end of a long process of drafting and revision, I consigned the Charter Charismatic Identity. The need was seen for a single document which would bring together the communion, the mission, and the identity, and it is there that our spirituality takes its place. This is the value for the Salesian family at this Charter of Charismatic Identity. I give all the members of the Salesian family, today and always, the task of knowing and studying it, since it is important that we have a common point of reference valid for all of us. The experience of the days in Rome was brought to a wider audience, and those left at home by collaboration between the Department for Social Communication and Missione Don Bosco. A specifically prepared site made available, day by day, the texts of the talks, galleries of photographs and video summaries of the events. This material, collected together in a box, will be made available to all the centres so that all the groups can gather the fruits from the seeds planted in Rome, and so that the whole Salesian family, coming to know Don Bosco and imitating him, might make the young their life's mission.